I'd like to call on Alaji Esa Fode Dabo to lead us in prayer.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إسرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we celebrate the 58th anniversary of the independence, I would like to thank the Almighty Allah for protecting and preserving our nation Gambia and made it a peaceful country throughout this period. So thanks to Allah for that. And it is the duty of all of us, including the government, organizations, and the individuals, to support in maintenance of peace and security in the country, which is the ultimate goal for democracy. The Gambia Super Islamic Council is the umbrella organization for Islamic scholars who are working in strengthening unity and understanding among the scholars, and also to support them to carry out their functions as peacemakers in the country. The work of religious leaders under the umbrella of Gambia Super Islamic Council is focused on 5 necessities that we call ad-daruriyat al-khamsa. These 5 necessities, although the time given to me is only 5 minutes, but I will try to explain each one of them in 1 minute, if I can do that, inshallah. The first one is to preserve the religion. The religion is, I can say as a believer, that the religion is the most important thing that a person possesses in this life. Because the religion is like the soul for the body. Without religion, you are considered dead. So we cannot have a developed country with dead people. So that's our belief. So that's why on this point, I want to highlight 3 things. One is that the negative interpretation of secularism, which means to wipe out the religion from all aspects of our life, should not be accepted in this country, because we cannot develop in the absence of religion. Number 2, protection of religion is the responsibility of all. At this juncture, I will urge the government to support both Gambia Super Islamic Council and Gambia Christian Council to empower them to serve as regulatory bodies for the religion, because we are having foreigners coming with different versions of the religion, and that, if it's not addressed, may create religious conflict, which is not in line with security. And number three, okay, the second necessity is that to protect the life of the people. Islam is a peaceful religion. When you meet with your fellow Muslim, Assalamu alaikum. If you meet with the people and you said Assalamu alaikum, not only saying that, Assalamu alaikum means peace be upon you. Not only that, you shake hand and also you smile. So I think that is an indication that you are a peaceful man and you want everybody in this country to live peacefully. So our religion is a peaceful religion. One of the names of the Almighty Allah is As-Salam. So let's all work towards that. Islam call for peaceful coexistence. Islam call for respect for human beings, support each other with respect and dignity. And not only that, but in order to have a developed nation, we need to support each other. We cannot develop, we have more than 50% hungry and only 40% are having a luxury life. That's not the development in the perspective of Islam. Maybe they are signaling that my time is up, but I will want to thank the organizers. For us, definitely as religious leaders, we thank you very much, but we want us, when applying our democracy values, we should not forget the religion. While we are talking, while we are campaigning, we are Muslims. All what you are saying, you are accounted for before the Almighty Allah. Sometimes if you listen to people insulting each other in the name of, because we are doing political campaign and all those things, they talk like they are not Muslims. So I think the Islamic principles should be preserved in our democratic processes, democratic functions, so that we'll consider as Muslims in this country. So I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Ya Imam. We are trying to be on schedule. Our apologies, but we are an hour behind. So we'll be marking the time very tightly. It's my pleasure now to invite the Most Reverend Bani Manga to pray for us and also do a 5-minute reflection on religion.
Great God of nations, we thank you for the nation of the Gambia. We thank you for our part in it. We thank you for allowing us to be part of this independence celebration. And yet, as we celebrate 58 years of nationhood, we pray that by the power of your Holy Spirit, you would help us in our reflections, so not only to have a rhetorical perspective, but also to have praxis, so that our nation will be better. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Friends, various commentators have given us various shades describing an understanding of democracy, peace, and development within the context of post-independence. These perspectives might be limited by the various contexts of the commentators. However, I want to suggest a Gambian, as it were, view of what should be democracy, peace, and development. Beckley Rice, on the eve of our independence, is purported to suggest that our democracy would not last as the Gambia is an improbable nation. This position, as insulting as it is a call for all Gambians to demonstrate that our democracy can be a recipe for peace and development. In response to this myopic and dusted perspective, the late Sir Dawda Karabajawa offers us a more hopeful, determined, and forward-looking position for Gambians on the 17th of February 1965. Sir Dawda is of the opinion that we may not have a lot to offer, but we can show the world how a group of people with different ethnic origins and religious backgrounds can live together in peace and harmony. These beautiful, progressive, and inclusive words are aptly summed in the words of our national anthem. My friends, since I said I want to give a definition of democracy, I would suggest that for us Gambians, democracy should be summed up in the words of that local song, Liggéey Jotna, Gambia Hamna Bopam. Democracy for me is about responsibility. If this position is anything to go by, the Bible and all articles of faith tell us that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Also, all holy books that we subscribe to in this nation tell us that all form of authority should and must be derived from Almighty God. In that context, if we are going to suggest that we should uphold democracy, then I want to suggest that democracy is the grace offered to humanity to participate with God in shaping, caring, and upholding the values, dignity, and possibilities associated with humanity. This is a privilege and must be understood in the context of responsibility. John Stott, in his book Authentic Christianity, suggests that all those who occupy positions of authority in society are responsible both to the God who has entrusted it to them and to the persons for whose benefit they have been given. This understanding resonates with our definition of politics. We are of the opinion that politics is concerned with the development and adoption of specific policies with a view of them being enshrined in legislation. It is about gaining power for social change. This understanding must be our definition of democracy. For me, we cannot talk about democracy when the words of our coat of arms are not reflected: peace, progress, and prosperity. The question is, since independence, are we on a path for sustained peace and development? Is the Gambia poised for self-actualization or national progress? Do we vote for the future or respond to peanuts given to us by politicians? Are our thought patterns progressive or backwards? Do we have a national agenda as Gambians, or do we say to ourselves, what do I gain from this position? The Gambia National Pledge is very apt in responding to all of this. It is the combination of government and people working together in unison and harmony that still leads us to achieve the progress that we desire. We must stand together as one people with one goal and move forward as one nation. For if we insist on pursuing our personal goals without keeping our collective objectives and responsibilities in mind, then indeed we shall fail. Let us renew these promises we make to ourselves and to our country at the time of independence as enshrined in our national anthem. We can go on. I'm trying to jump because of the time allocated. I want to suggest that if our democracy is going to lead to peace and development, then we should uphold few things. One, we should learn from history. History has offered various discussions to suggest that when a people do not have a national agenda, they hide under the guise of religious fundamentalism. This appears to be a new trend within our jurisdiction, as some of our people are losing the beauty of Gambian neighborliness. In Gambia, we don't talk about your religion. We talk about who is my neighbor. Kan moy suma dekandor. Today we don't hear Dekandor. We hear about what is your religion, what is your affiliation. And if us as Gambians do not halt this, it will lead to a very sad reality. May I suggest that the deadliest weapon in our contemporary times is not a nuclear war, but an ignorant person clouded in religiosity. We need to develop a more humane approach to governance. Let's be honest. Most of our funds, as per what I see in our national budget, is it going towards developing ourselves, or is it going towards paying for travels and per diems and for buying new vehicles and buying fuel allocations for it? The way things are going, as long as I'm continually being poor, I will see those who are continually being rich as an enemy. And all of us now are at the brink of people attacking us at night. And they're coming with knives. And some of us are working hard for the little peanuts that we have. But because people see me as big as I am, they don't know what is causing me to be big as I am. They will think I'm eating the monies of the church or the monies of the state. They will come and attack me. And then you will not have me come stand here and talk to you. We all need to make sure that the national cake is shared amongst all of us as we go forward. It is about time as Gambians we move away from rhetorics into praxis. We go to all sort of meetings and conferences and we see a lot of good grammar. Where is the praxis? Well, it's 1 minute, so I'll end. And then, as I end, I'll suggest, let's learn to honor ourselves. Let's learn to honor Gambia. Let's learn to celebrate ourselves as Gambians. It was Peter Tosh who said, everyone is crying for peace, and no one is crying for justice. I think it is about time we strengthen our judicial system, because all of you would find out that recent happenings have suggested to us that the young population that we have is very much interested in the judiciary system. But I'm also worried because whenever there are big cases, all those young people that you see out, they're not working. Because if they were working, they would have been in their place of work. My friends, let's develop a sense of nationalism. And then my last point will be, everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. Everything is permissible, but I will not be mastered by it. If I live as a Gambian for the benefit of another Gambian, and you as a Gambian live for the benefit of other Gambian, this nation will be a better place. Happy independence to you all. God bless you.
The Most Reverend Bani Manga already setting the pace. I am glad the welcome remarks will be delivered by the Honorable Minister for Justice. He doubles as Attorney General.
Today we gather to reflect on the progress we have made as a nation and to discuss the way forward towards a more peaceful and prosperous future. The theme of this occasion, democracy, a recipe for peace and development, is not only timely, but also relevant to the challenges we face as a nation. As we celebrate this important milestone, it is important to acknowledge the role that democracy has and continues to play in our nation-building process. Democracy can promote peace and development in several ways. Key among them are accountability. Democracy allows citizens to hold their leaders accountable for their actions, which in turn fosters a culture of transparency and reduces corruption. This leads to a more effective and efficient use of public resources, thereby promoting development. Rule of law. Democracy is built on rule of law, which provides a framework for protecting human rights, promoting justice and equality, and resolving disputes in peaceful manners. This ensures that people can live in peace and security, free from violence and coercion. Inclusivity. Democracy provides a platform for inclusive decision-making, such as regular, free, and fair elections, where all members of society have a say in the governance process. This fosters a sense of ownership and participation in the development of the country and reduces the likelihood of violent conflict. Separation of powers. In a democratic system, power is divided among different organs of government, such as the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. This helps to prevent any one group from having too much power and provides a system of checks and balances. Economic growth. Democracy can stimulate economic growth by promoting innovation, entrepreneurship, and investment. Democracies tend to have more stable and predictable political environment, which encourages investment and economic activities. Social cohesion. Democracy promotes social cohesion by encouraging the active participation of all members of society, regardless of their background. This reduces social tensions and promotes peaceful coexistence. So in summation, democracy can promote peace and development by fostering accountability, the rule of law, inclusivity, economic growth, and social cohesion. These factors help to build a peaceful and prosperous society where all members can live in dignity and security. We in the Gambia, through democratic processes, we have been able to forge a peaceful and stable society where the rule of law, human rights, and good governance are upheld. It is, therefore, imperative that we continue to nurture and protect our democratic institutions and values to ensure sustained growth and development. The public forum provides us with an opportunity to engage in meaningful dialogue on the issues affecting our nation and to explore innovative solutions to the challenges we face. I am confident that the discussions and the recommendations arising from this forum will be useful in the shaping of policies and programs that will help to accelerate the pace of our national development. Once again, I welcome you all to this forum and look forward to a productive and enlightening engagement. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, the Honorable Dauda Jallow, Madam Secretary General, Chief of Staff, Mr. Maud Cisse, my boss, the Honorable Minister for Information, my other boss, the Honorable Minister for Basic and Secondary Education, and the Minister of Interior, Honorable, you're welcome, and the Honorable Dauda Jallow. Ladies and gentlemen, partners, civil society, representatives of organizations and agencies would like to welcome you to this intergenerational dialogue. We'll set the pace for a discussion that we hope will continue in the banter bars, at homes, in classrooms, in lecture halls. Today, we are united by one fact: the Gambia. We are not looking at political parties, we are not looking at tribes, we are not looking at religion. You will see the composition of the panelists here today, and each of them will have 10 minutes to give a reflection, unfettered, as they see fit, to discuss about our country. The rules of engagement, however, are: we will provide 8 minutes to each person to give your reflections, and we'll signal you when you have 2 more minutes to go to conclude. We are hoping we're going to start a discussion today that we will follow every Independence Eve, that all of us will come together for one purpose: talk about our country and how we move forward as a people. So therefore, it's with pleasure that I introduce my co-host. I've been talking a lot this morning, and for good reason, because my co-host thought it was better that I talk a lot, and I love talking. Actually, I get paid to talk, and therefore, that she would let me do the opening ceremony. So as I pass on to her, she's a communications enthusiast with several years of experience in media. And she currently works as media and communications person under the Director of Press and Public Relations, Office of the President. Ladies and gentlemen, the host for the next several minutes, I hope, or an hour and so, Zainab Fall.
Welcome everyone to this very important gathering. This forum is one of the most important gatherings that I would say I ever participated in. And because we are way behind schedule, I will not spend a lot of time buttressing on that. But few things I would like to note is the dynamism and foresight of the Director of Press and Public Relations, Ami Bojang Sissoho, who's the brainchild of this program. So without further ado, I would like to introduce one of the panelists for the junior panel. But before that, can I kindly invite the junior panel on the high table, please? The first person I would call is Abdullah Kurang. Abdullah is a Mo Ibrahim Foundation funded PhD candidate in development studies at the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London. His research interest includes governance and development in sub-Saharan Africa, precarious and low-skilled labor, tourism in the South, development aid and humanitarianism, dependency and decoloniality studies. Before joining SARS, Abdullah served as the head of solutions mapping at the United Nations Development Program in the Gambia, and prior to that, he was a lecturer in development studies at the University of the Gambia. Abdullah holds a master's degree in social development with distinction from the University of Sussex as Achievement Scholar, and a master's degree in public policy and social change with distinction from Collegio Carlo Alberto University of Turin. He pursued undergraduate studies in development studies at the University of the Gambia. Abdullah, you are welcome to give your reflection on the theme of this gathering.
First, I would like to observe all important dignitaries present here, the media, the civil society, and also my gratitude goes to State House for giving me this opportunity to be part of this very important discussion. Actually, today, I did not have any written speech, though. I'm not going to read a speech, but rather it's going to be more of a reflection. And yes, I would start by looking at this very ambiguous concepts, that is democracy, peace, and development. And these are concepts that are not new to anyone, I guess. Because when we talk of democracy, it is a very loaded concept. It's very ambiguous. It is an apple pie. Everyone likes it. Every government claims to be democratic, even the most authoritarian ones. And when we talk about peace, people describe peace in different ways. Some would tell you that peace is the absence of war or other forms of violent conflicts. And others would tell you that peace is the absence of hunger. So this also makes peace quite a loaded concept. And when we talk of development, development is a multidimensional, multifaceted concept. Multidimensional in the sense that development may mean economic growth. Others would see themselves as a developed country when they're able to achieve remarkable economic growth. Some would see themselves as a developed country when they are able to enhance the human development of their society, that is, improve the well-being of their people, be it better incomes, better education, or better healthcare. And others would see themselves as a developed nation, that is when they are able to celebrate their cultural diversity and so on. So these are the loaded concepts, and these are so now I'm going to try to build an interconnection between these three concepts. Obviously, there is a strong correlation between democracy, peace, and development. And this correlation can be consciously created through deliberate efforts. That is, efforts by the government through the building of strong public institutions. Like the saying goes, democracy does not fall from the sky, but rather it is consciously developed, it is consciously consolidated, it is consciously facilitated in a society. For example, you look at countries like the DRC, you realize that it is one of the most troubled countries in the sub-region, in sub-Saharan Africa. And Africa in general has, over the years, been one of the most so-called troubled continent in the world because of the challenges that we have, that is the violent conflicts that we have witnessed since the dawn of since the end of colonialism. And many a times, we cite to institutional failures for these problems. These problems do not emerge out of the vacuum, but they emerge as a result of institutional failures. That is, as a result of, let's say, rampant corruption, or as a result of fusion of powers. That is, there are no clear separation of powers between the three arms of government. That is, the executive tends to have more powers, that it dominates the judiciary, the media, and the legislative arm of government. So in this sense, how do we make sure that democracy speaks to peace and development? Is by making sure that government builds a strong institution that are able to provide us with the needed legislations that we can use, we can rely on. Legislations, be it policy documents, be it legal frameworks that we can use to develop our society. And also, democracy, through the building of strong institutions, would enable us to be able to deliver the needed services that the populace needs. Because we should just move from the rituals of seeing democracy as the conduct of mere elections. Because most of the times we tend to tap ourselves on the shoulders, be like, Gambia is able to conduct free and fair elections. But what next? Because you cast your votes, go home, and then you're hungry. You have nothing to eat, and so on. So we should move from this rhetoric of just free and fair elections or institutional procedures, because some of these things have become institutional procedures or tick-box exercise, whereby institutions, governments, and so on feel that if they're able to just conduct free and fair elections, it's a democratic environment. But what about service delivery? What about meeting the basic needs of people? What about in the very remotest parts of rural Gambia, providing them with clean drinking water? What about those kids that are still studying, in very uncomfortable, unconducive environments? I think these are all important things that we need to consider if we are to talk of democracy, not just conducting elections, or not just having legal frameworks, or not just having policy documents. Because all of these things would be ornamental. They would just be lucrative. Let's say the Gambia, for example. We don't have problems when it comes to policy documents. The Gambia is the wealthiest country when it comes to policy documents. Look at the NDP. Look at other policy documents that we have from, let's say, the PRSP, from the page, and so on. We have all these documents. But look at the plight of the Gambians. Are we getting better? Is the Gambia developing? Is it actually advancing? These are questions that we need to ask ourselves. These are frank questions that we need to ask ourselves. Because it's not about me. People like me are lucky to be privileged now, because I'm able to escape that poverty, because I also grew up in rural Gambia. I was lucky to escape that poverty. But how many of my colleagues will be able to make it out there to live such a privileged life? So these are some of the things we need to consider in terms of policy development, in terms of being responsive to the needs and aspirations of local populations, particularly those that are living in the remotest parts of Gambia. And I always say this, that is, sometimes these concepts are kind of tokenized. Democracy is a very tokenized concept. It is flaunted around, it is used, like I said, even by the most authoritarian governments to kind of moralize and legitimize their administrations. So, how can we make sure that these kind of forums are not just rhetorics, whereby we will come and say very fanciful words, and it is going to be covered by the media, it is going to be ticked in the institutional proceedings that the Gambia, at its 58th independence celebration, was able to hold a public forum called, Democracy, a Recipe for Development, and so. Because that means it is an institutional procedure, it has been ticked. Now it has kind of given that appealing, legitimizing, moralizing face of the Gambian government. So how do we move from that to making sure that these platforms are able to actually have a more practical impact? And even when I came to this forum, actually, this is quite an elitist gathering, if we are to be frank to ourselves. Is it not so? It's quite an elitist gathering. Because I know it is going to be televised there, the media is going to showcase it, and so on. But what about the very, very local people? Where are they? They are not part of this occasion. And these are the people that we are speaking on their behalf. And we are talking of democracy, and when we talk of democracy, we are talking of participatory democracy, a popular government, and so on. So I think these are things that all need to be taken into account if we are serious about democracy being responsive to the development and peace of this country. Like I said, peace shouldn't be seen in that very myopic point of view as the absence of violent conflicts and so on. But we need to look at peace from a more expansive point of view. That is making sure that people are able to live in a society, in a dignified society. People are able to go to bed in a dignified sense. That is, they are not hungry. We cannot talk of peace in the face of absolute poverty, vulnerability, and destitution. Okay? And also, in relation to that, development does not occur by accident. It is through conscious efforts of government, by building strong public institutions that would build the right policies, not just to build policies and gather dust, but to make sure that these policies are responsive to the development needs and aspirations of our society. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Abdullah Quran. That is the ultimate goal of this project forum. We want to have honest conversations, reflect as Gambians on the theme, which is democracy, a recipe for peace and development. So I now have the honor to call Njilan Senghor. Njilan started her education at St. Joseph's School, now Mrs. Ndau, where following a double promotion from primary 3 to 5, she finished primary school a year ahead of her peers and gained admission to the Gambia High School. In 1993, she graduated from the Gambia High School and proceeded to the West Midlands School of Accountancy in Birmingham, UK. At the age of 21, she attained qualification 2 world-recognized accountancy Association of Accounting Technicians, AAT, Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, ACCA. Today, she is a fellow member of the Association of Accounting Technicians, a fellow member of the Association of Chartered and Certified Accountants, and also holds a master's degree in business administration from the Oxford Brookes University in UK. In May 2007, Njilan joined Trust Bank Limited as General Manager in charge of Finance, Administration, and Human Resources. A promotion to Deputy Managing Director followed in July 2016, and in December 2021, She became the first female managing director and the first female executive director of the bank's board. In addition to her duties as a bank executive, Gillan sits on the boards of Royal Insurance Company Limited, Switch Company Limited, Baber Financial Services Limited, and International Bank of Liberia. Gillan also participates in mentoring young ladies approaching the end of high school and those venturing into business. Kindly join me to welcome Gillan to give us her reflection on the theme.
Good morning, distinguished ministers. Good morning, distinguished religious leaders. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Because we don't have a lot of time, I'm going to stand on existing protocols. I am especially grateful to Auntie Ami and the Office of the President for inviting me to this forum, but especially more thankful for being considered a youth. I mean, that is the highlight of my day, so thank you for that. This forum is really important because it talks about reflecting and understanding and nurturing our understanding of democracy. I'm sure most people who went to school at around my generation, which is a long, long time ago, were told that the definition of democracy is the government of the people, by the people, for the people. I mean, we could recite this definition. We could recite this definition, sleeping, because that's what we were told. But at that age, I'm not even sure that we understood what it meant or were able to even articulate and discuss our ideas around it. We have come a long way, but we still have a difference in opinion about what democracy means. And I'm going to start with this story. A couple of years ago, my friend and I were having this discussion about what democracy means. And she explained how, following the 2016 elections, she had a group of boys in her neighborhood who were smoking Thai. And she went to address the issue with them, and they responded, "Sis, legi time democracy ba, lu ñu neex def." So I think the understanding here is that most Gambians think that democracy means they have the freedom to act and express themselves in any way they want. And that is why it is important that we have forums like this so that we can talk about what we need to do to promote democracy. It starts with education. It starts with informing and enlightening people so that they understand that there are limits to their rights to act with freedom, to do whatever they want. Where your rights start to encroach on somebody else's rights, it is no longer democracy, and I think it is very important that we talk about that. Okay? We've also been told, and we heard this a lot from Nelson Mandela, that democracy and human rights are inseparable. And I'm sure we largely agree on that principle. We are also told that there can be no democracy without truth. And there can be no truth without controversy. So forgive me if what I have to say about my opinion on democracy is a little bit controversial, but let us just call it my democratic right to express myself. I sought and I received Auntie Ami's blessings to talk about democracy in the context of my field, which is the field of finance. I'm sure I will not get any disagreements when I say that democracy inspires economic growth. I am sure I will also have your agreement when I say that a robust democratic institution and foreign direct investment are key drivers of economic growth. Again, I'm sure you will agree with me when I say that a solid democratic institution is better equipped to absorb the benefits of foreign direct investments. The Gambia is a small, developing, open economy with a narrow economic base. Therefore, we need to be able to harness our democracy to inspire economic growth. While I will agree that the Gambia's democratic process is commendable, we've had successful elections. I think my predecessor has talked about that before, so I will not belabor that point. We've also performed fairly well in international economic programs that we have. But today I want to talk about the things that we do and how they impact on my sector. In 2016, before the election, my sector, the banking sector, was only able to mobilize deposits of around $17 billion. This is just before the elections. Today, by the end of December 22, we are talking about deposit mobilization of over $54 billion. So 17 billion to 54 billion is a huge difference. And I think we can give credit for that to peace and stability. In my sector, we had a loan book industry-wide of about $4 billion just prior to the elections. Today, financial intermediation is up to almost $14 billion, again, a very major growth. What does this say? It says that peace and stability is very, very important in our sector. And it means that when people trust, then they are able to send more remittances into the country, they are able to do more business in the country, and they expect that the financial institutions are well regulated and there are adequate infrastructure in place to be able to protect their investments. So that is very important that we take away from these discussions. Like I said before, the Gambia is a very small country, but we've seen that real GDP growth for 2021, rather 2022, has grown. And this is backed by remittance inflows and the recovery in tourism. We've seen a lot of Gambians, those overseas, we've seen a lot of foreigners invest more in our country, even in construction. We see a lot of them now trying to be homeowners. Do you think that would be possible if we were a nation that was engaged in wars and instability? No, it wouldn't. So I think the key takeaway from this is we have a responsibility to make sure that to help our country grow, to help our economy grow, we need to make sure that we fulfill our obligations to keep our country safe and secure. We need to talk about the negative aspects of democracy. We are a small economy that needs access to international correspondent banking relationships in order to be able to facilitate cross-border payments and things like that. It is very disheartening to see how people use, especially nowadays in the days of social media, when people have a platform to be able to exercise their democratic rights to talk about their opinions, how they do so carelessly, and they do not pay attention to the impact that what they say and what they do has on the rest of us. As far as I'm concerned, I feel that what you say and what you do is affecting my right to be able to do business in the way that I need to do it. And I'll give you this example. A lot of you may or may not be familiar with the fact that Gambia, like other African countries, are facing severe de-risking by correspondent banks, international banks. And they do so because they do not feel that we have the democratic structures in place to guarantee good corporate governance structures, to guarantee good regulatory environments. Basically, they don't trust us. They don't think that we are going to do a good job of this. And where do they get that information from? From us and what we put out on social media. It is somebody's job somewhere to sit down. 2 minutes, okay. It is somebody's job somewhere to sit down and look at adverse media on a daily basis. And what we are doing is we are providing them with ammunition to say that they are right in their views of Africa. A correspondent bank will de-risk you and tell you you didn't do anything wrong personally, but it is a country risk. It is a country risk because we do not respect each other. So we put anything we like on social media thinking that we are fighting each other. Ladies and gentlemen, if we do not respect ourselves, nobody else will. We cannot operate in isolation. We need the world. Therefore, it is time to use our so-called democracy to make sure that we put ourselves in good light. We need to be respected as a country, and it starts with us. Thank you.
So I now have the honor to introduce another young, dynamic Gambian in the name of Ousmane Touré. Ousmane is a young, passionate Pan-Africanist, an industrious and compelling speaker born and bred in the Gambia. He is devoted to transforming the African continent through fostering Afrocentric development narratives, calling the African populace to unite, to own and reclaim the African development narrative. Through the Young Ancestors Foundation, Ousmane is working relentlessly to unlock the potential of young people and galvanizing them to assert their prowess in making Africa the Africa that we want. Kindly join me in welcoming Ousmane to give his reflections.
So, this is a difficult one in so many ways. Mr. Kurang, Prof, happens to be my #1 lecturer at UTG because it was his first class that I entered in my university journey. Then the next one is speaking after a banker is not easy because yeah, but okay, thank you so much. So to just say or to stand on the existing protocols, I know we have limited time, so I would just like to go straight on the discussion: democracy, peace, development. In so many instances, we are made to believe that democracy is not Gambian and democracy is not African. Yes, in words, because the name doesn't originate from Africa. If I travel further down, just after Brikama, I will observe in every community a village Bantaba. What was the purpose of such? In my own community where I grew up, I observed my parents, community leaders, meeting in the village Bantaba called Pinch. And I had no idea where they must have been inspired to understand that they need to involve themselves in dialogues, in community engagement, in taking decisions collectively towards the betterment of their livelihood. Moving further, when we talk about democracy, there are principles, there are things that it promises us. And as a state, like the state minister mentioned and some of the other speakers, with a democratic system, we are promised that it comes with protections of the minority, protection of life, rule by consent, majority taking the lead in decision making, the rule of law, the separation of powers, giving powers to the people. But above all, democracy is built on the principle of choice and competition. The people must have a choice. And they should not be living in fear to exhibit those choices. And they must have a free and fair grounds to compete. Competing in politics, in the economy, and in their social livelihood. But there is a but. And that is where the government comes in to serve as a referee, to protect the minorities' interest, to make sure that individuals are not exploited, to make sure that there is limitation in the classes that could be established by just allowing the free force of demand and supply to control the daily livelihood. Now, when we look at peace and development, in the Gambia, we are known for our existing peacefulness. It is not a new thing. Gambians everywhere are observed and looked at as very, very peaceful individuals. But the early warning signs of a threat to the existing peace are a daily reality. We see them in our houses, we see them in our community, we see them in our political parties, we see them in our daily engagements as a nation. And that should send all of us a signal as to where are we heading. Is this the actual promise of the democracy that the Gambia has championed from independence to date? Because this country, we should not just look at it as its size. This is one of the countries that champions the democratization process of Africa. When nations in Africa were going for one-party system, dictatorial regime, more rigid ways of governing, the Gambia had already opened its space for competition and choices. It has been hijacked to some extent, and today we believe we've recovered it. We are in a day to celebrate independence. If this was a newly born baby then that baby is now 58 years. Someone just told me yesterday, I don't know if it was a baby or what, but I think it's getting old. So we must then pay attention to the fact that we are no longer young as a country. We have to work and establish something concrete for this generation and generations of Gambians to come. On the side of development, yes, is democracy a recipe for development? Yes. Is democracy the only recipe for development? No. Some societies have tried something totally different and yet succeed. But here is the winning point. Democracy has been tested and it works in delivering development. But those developments have equally been contextualized by countries to what fits them. So what fits us? What democracy fits the Gambia and the Gambian people? This should be the basic of our engagements today. In the whole world, Greece has been recommended as the actual founders of what we today call democracy. One of the recent Greek scholars and most phenomenal of our time, Yanis Varoufakis, in his book, Talking to My Daughter About the Economy, talks about the threat that his own nation, that is worldly recognized as the origin and the root of democracy, is at a threat because capitalism is eating the existing democracy they have. And we have seen the crisis in 2008, the current conflicts, the injustice globally, the balance of international powers, where states like the Gambia and many other developing countries, or countries to be specific in the African continent, have been denied space, opportunities, the unequal distribution of global resources in the name of democracy, because we have been told that with the progress of democracy, we have to be globalized states. That leads us to being developed. And therefore, there are existing patterns that we must all take. But no, development, and this is where the difference is. In biology, development is existing principles. Yes, if this meets this, with a period of time, the result is this. It's concrete, already scientifically proven and approved. Socially, development doesn't work like that. There is no existing single pattern where one can read, master, and deliver and get 100% development. No. Countries go through challenges. Countries observe these challenges. They build upon it. And at the end, they register a development that is genuinely theirs. As a country today, that is where our priorities should lie. Yes, indeed, we have good policies. We have good strategic documents. We have
a country where there is no shortage of literatures. But what do we do beyond this literature? The books, the papers, the policies don't feed anyone. For a sustainable, for a just country, for us to attain that economic prosperity, there's the need to put all these ideas, the documents, everything into concrete actions that address the daily challenges of the Gambian behind bars and live in a society where we do not allow individuals whose objective is to maximize profit, exploit our own people in our watch. That leads to unequal society, which again would lead to a lot of difficulties. So yes, democracy as a recipe for development and peace. But if misunderstood, the reverse happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Usman Toure, for those very important reflections. I now have the honor to call Lala Toure. Lala is a Gambian youth leader and women's rights activist. She currently serves as the program officer for the National Democratic Institute for International Affairs, where she implements programs in partnership with government and CSOs to improve democratic governance in the Gambia. She is an alumnus of the Mandela Washington Fellowship, who previously worked with the International Republican Institute and the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, a recipient of Nelson Mandela School of Public Governance Women in Leadership Fellowship. Lala is passionate about the inclusion of women and young people in governance processes. Kindly join me in welcoming Ms. Lala Toure on the podium.
Thank you very much, Zainab. Good afternoon, honorable ministers. I would like to stand on existing protocols as well, given the time constraints. I would also like to greet all the beautiful ladies and gentlemen who've joined us today to be a part of this very important public forum and discussion as we look forward to celebrate our nation's 58th Independence Day. In 2016, I was a 17-year-old high school student who was looking to graduate from high school and tick the boxes. The boxes were go to school, graduate, get a job, be paid, mind your business. And this is because I was born and raised in a country where we were taught it was not okay to speak up, where we were taught it was not okay to have a voice, where we were taught it was not okay as young people to stand up for something, to stand up for truth, to stand up for democracy, to stand up for justice, to stand up for open governance. And because of that, I was going to be one of the many other young Gambians who would graduate from high school, get a job, sit in an office the whole day, and then mind their business, because that was the norm. In 2023, I am a 24-year-old Gambian woman who works to support her government to improve their transparency, to improve open governance in the Gambia. And the only difference between my 17-year-old self in 2016 and my 24-year-old self in 2023 is that in my late teens and in my early 20s, I had the opportunity to live in a democratic dispensation where the space was created for me to thrive, where I was allowed to explore my talent, where I was allowed to do what I genuinely love and I am passionate about, which is providing or contributing to my country's political and socioeconomic development. Over the years, there's been a lot of discussion and a series of efforts, all of which are geared towards the consolidation of our very young democracy. It's something that we all know that given our country's political and governance history, there's a need for us to uphold the standards and the principles of a thriving democracy. And we know that the values of a thriving democracy can never be overstated. It can never be overemphasized. And given our country's current dynamics, our current situation, there is a dire need for a strong, accountable, and open democratic governance. This is something that is acknowledged not just by the government, by Gambians, but also by development partners with whom I work with. In this regard, it is important to recognize that we cannot attain the change we want. We cannot attain the development we yearn for in the absence of peace or in the absence of democracy. Democracy and peace are two very fundamental pillars needed for our country's development. And in building this peace and this democracy that we've talked about for so long over the past couple of years since the change of government in 2017, I think a very important thing that we also need to talk about is the need to build the trust and the confidence of Gambians, the trust and confidence of our people in the systems and the institutions that govern them. The lack of trust in the system and the lack of trust of people in the people that are voted to represent them and to serve in the interest of the country will go a long way in hindering our democratic progress. So how do we achieve this as a collective? How do we enhance the trust and the confidence that Gambians have in public institutions, that Gambians have in the governance system, that Gambians have in the people that they've voted into office to serve in their interests, to represent them, but also to bring about change and development in their lives, in their communities, in their livelihood. A clear definition of what democracy means for us is very important as a people and as a country. Yes, democracy is a global term, and there's a lot of conversation in the global stage about democracy and the need to bring it into third world and developing countries like the Gambia. So there is a need for us as Gambians, as the government, but also as a people, to define what democracy means for us, to put it into context, into local context, so that it is able to bring to us the development and the change that we yearn, the development and the change that we need as a people and as a country. But there is also a need to build strong, accountable, transparent, open, and inclusive institutions and governance systems. We can't achieve change, we can't achieve development, we can't achieve democracy in the absence of strong state institutions. We can't achieve it in the absence of an accountable, a transparent, and open governance system which the people can trust. And this is why it is very important to invest into building strong institutions that are transparent, that are open, and that are accountable. And there's also a need for transformative and change-oriented visionary leadership to guide the efficient and effective running of these institutions. These institutions are not going to run themselves. So when we're having the conversations on the need to build stronger institutions to get us to where we want to get to as a people and as a country, there's also a need to talk about the need to reform leadership, what leadership means, and what it will take to have visionary leadership that will run these institutions efficiently and effectively so they will bring to Gambians the change that is needed. And like I said before, democracy cannot thrive in the absence of strong institutions and visionary leadership. And leadership should be selfless, it should be principled, and it should be ethical. This is what will get us to where we want to get to. Strong institutions and leaderships that will work to build a well-developed and a self-sufficient country with sectors that can create the needed policies and programs that will immensely bring about peace, progress, and prosperity. 3 words of great significance to our beloved country. And I think my colleagues here have talked about how Gambia has a lot of progressive policies, which we do have. So how do we now move on from just developing policies and bringing in legal frameworks to implementing them, enforcing these policies so they can actually be beneficial to Gambia's development. And as a people and a country, we need to not just build sustainable peace, we need to work collectively to maintain the peace. It's one thing to build peace, it's a totally different thing to maintain peace. And we are at a stage where we need to work collectively to maintain our country's peace. And as a young Gambian woman who is very passionate about seeing change, I would not come here and not talk about the need for also the need for the empowerment of women and young people as we're having these conversations on democracy and development and bringing about change. We need to provide the spaces for women and young people. Democracy is great, but democracy is even stronger when women and young people are given the spaces that are needed for them to explore their talent, for them to showcase their potential, for them to add their voices to governance, for them to participate and be represented. It's not only enough to participate. We have, in our political history, women and young people have been active participants in politics. They've been active participants in governance. They've been active participants in elections. The last election data shows the significant number of Gambian young women, Gambian women and young people who actually registered to vote, and they did vote, and they were a part of the processes. So how do we move from having them participate to having them being represented, to having them sitting on the tables that matter, to having them make decisions and influence policies that have a direct impact on their lives, on the lives of Gambians and their livelihood and the communities and the progress of this country. So it is very important to me as a young woman who has worked with women and young people across the country, whose voice we need to empower and who we need to create platforms for. And we talk about peace a lot. Women and young people form a very significant part of our population. And given this reason, it is very important that the needed spaces are created for them. Because what happens if you have a very significant part of your population, huge numbers, that do not have access to opportunities, that do not have access to platforms or spaces through which they're empowered or they're supported, what happens then? That is when we start having increase in crime rate, because these are young people who do not have hope. These are young people who do not have opportunities. They don't have jobs. They don't have centers where they can go to and be able to contribute their part to the vibrant socioeconomic and political development of our country. So what do they turn to then? This is why it's important that we take into consideration the huge numbers that are made up by Gambian young people and women and create the needed opportunities for them so they're also able to meaningfully contribute to the Gambia's development as we're having these conversations around democracy. In the absence of these opportunities for growth, it is the ability for this very important section of our population to contribute to our development will be very limited. And it's been 58 years since we have had our independence. And moving forward, really, the conversation should be around how we as a collective can bring the change that Gambians have for so long yearned for. How do we bring about the development that will have a sustainable impact on the lives and livelihood of the Gambians? I'll tell you one thing, it's not going to happen overnight. It will take a lot of commitment, it will take drive, it will take vision, it will take love for country and people, patriotism and nationalism to get us there. We have come a long way and the time for change is now. It is not in the next 10 years, it is not next year, it is not even tomorrow, it is today and it is now, so we must start to act. Thank you.
I think the dynamics have really changed. If you look at the composition of the panel, of course, you have more women. So that shows women have that confidence now, and women are created, platforms have been created for women to express themselves and take part in conversations as such. So thank you very much, Lala. The next panelist to come is Maria Sane. Maria Sane is a barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of the Gambia. Prior to being called to the bar, Maria worked as a legal fellow at the Institute of Human Rights and Development in Africa, and also served as an adjunct lecturer at the Faculty of Law, University of the Gambia, where she taught constitutional law. Maria currently contributes to research focused on human rights and constitutional law and practice through the Center of Research and Policy Development in Africa and Law Hub Gambia. She holds a master's degree in law from the University of Dublin and a bachelor's of laws from the University of the Gambia. Kindly join me to welcome Maria Sane on stage.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests and participants. I stand on all existing protocols here present. It is an honor and pleasure to be invited in this very important forum on the theme Democracy, a Recipe for Peace and Development. And I want to thank the organizing committee of this forum for convening this very important dialogue, which is very timely and important on the occasion of the Gambia's 58th independence celebration. It's not easy being the last or one of the last speakers on a panel like this. It's almost as if all the points have been made. But I will tailor down my statement on attaining credible democracy and where constitutional building fits in all of this. Is the absence of a good, credible, and well-attained constitution relevant in a democratic state? And whether, given our context, especially where we are coming from as a state in transition, given the existence or prior existence of a Constitutional Review Commission and how it had ended in the past, whether the Gambia currently lives or the realities of the Gambia is that of a democratic state. Now, democracies, just like the attainment of independence, are celebrated for being more peaceful than any other form of government because of the commitment to resolving grievances, disputes, and inequalities through peaceful, inclusive, and transparent institutions and mechanisms. It, however, remains a constant challenge in all regions of the world, and very often the mechanisms, institutions, and powers set up to preserve democracy come under pressure. In some instances, these pressures are so acute that democratic structures and processes start to fail. Or even in worse situations, the confidence of the people collapse altogether. Now, democracies in all over the world, with the Gambia not being an exception, is threatened by authoritarianism, conflict, societal division, corruption, and declining faith in public institutions. Progress towards democratic governance, peace, and prosperity endures when countries undergo regular democratic transitions of power from one democratically elected government to another. Now, in 2017, the Gambia ushered in a new government on the promise of restoring good governance and respect for the rule of law. In line with this legitimate expectation of the Gambian people, there was a consensus to embark on a transition. Consequently, there was a resolve to formulate a national transitional justice program to help restore democratic governance in the country, with key outcomes being the resolve to set up a TRRC, a Constitutional Review Commission, security sector reforms, among others. Against the establishment of these various reforms, it is important to emphasize on the link between peace and democracy as values that, although remain universal, but they are in one way or the other related to each other. These go insofar as where one fails, the other becomes endangered. However, these two are not easily attainable. They are not achieved overnight. It takes patience, working gradually, developing adequate laws and legal frameworks, and building strong institutions. Strong institutions make strong nations, while good laws make good citizens. For fragile states like ours, effort to foster inclusive constitutions, integrity in government, and a robust judiciary are the soundest form of investment because they create a premises for stability and national construction. To engage in legal reform is to reform societies as a whole, and there are no laws more fundamental than national constitutions. Constitutions encapsulate a vision, but they are also very highly technical documents. If the Gambia is to attain rule of law, democracy, and by extension, peace and development, we must have a constitution that reflects the wishes and aspirations of Gambians. Unfortunately, as we are all in this hall, this is not our reality. Given our context, having a constitution in place to replace the current 1997 constitution is central to the transitional process in our quest for democracy and attainment of peace and development. Despite this failure, Despite the failure of the 2020 draft constitution to pass at the level of the National Assembly, there has been efforts by the government to resuscitate the draft. There have also been proposals to simply make amendments to the current 1997 constitution instead of a new draft. While deliberating on these two options, it is critical to highlight that democracy delivers for all people, while our current constitution does not. As a state in transition, we must ensure our efforts are inclusive and participatory from the start. And when I say this, I'm not talking about conducting free and fair elections. I'm talking about establishing inclusive institutions and processes, especially for women and members of marginalized groups, enabling people to be involved in making decisions that involve their lives, ensuring public participation and administration is transparent and accountable, and advancing the protection of human rights. These foster societies that are resilient because these foster societies that are resilient against authoritarian resilience, corruption, conflict, and both natural and human-made crises. As a country, we must take the case that democratic governance, non-discrimination, and respect for human rights is delivered. Finally, I will not be doing justice if I leave this podium without addressing the fact that activists, advocates, and members of civil society, like many of us that are here in this hall today, are essential to equitable, responsive, and legitimate governance. So we have an interest and a moral imperative to protect the civic space and empower civil society organizations and allow civil society to play a unique and positive role in democracy, especially during hard times. But this goes without saying that in the exercise of all these rights, it must come with a sense of responsibility. Civil society cannot work in the absence of government. Civil society needs government the same way government needs civil society. So in our quest to attain democracy, and by extension, peace and development, I ensure all Gambians, in the occasion of the 58th independence celebration, to work hand in hand and not in isolation for the betterment of the Gambian people and the state at large. I thank you all for your kind attention.
I now have the honor to introduce the last speaker for the junior panel, who is Aji Kumba Dafe. Aji Kumba holds a bachelor's degree in both international business and finance from the Golden Gate University in San Francisco. Kumba is a founding member and public relations officer of the Commercial Farmers Agribusiness Network, a network of farmers linked and engaged in diverse commercial agriculture value chain businesses across the country, with the primary objective of contributing to the attainment of sufficiency in food production and ensuring sustainability in both nutrition and national food security in the Gambia. In 2019, with over 10 years experience with rural women, Kumba Dafeka is the founder and president of Treasure Women Warriors. The Treasure Women Warriors is a woman-led organization. The main aim of the organization is to uplift women to financial freedom. We operate in areas of agriculture, poultry, entrepreneurship, commodities trading, microfinance, and enterprise development. The headquarters is located in Kiankuinala. It operates 6 farmers and 5 poultry farms and have over 7,000 women and growing in network in CRR, URR, LRR, West Coast region, and the Comoros. Kindly join me to welcome Aji Kumba Dafe on the podium.
Greetings to all of you. I have to change my speech because everything that I wanted to say has been said. So in 5-10 minutes after Lala, I said, okay, I have to write a whole new speech. So help me God. I am the president of the Treasure Women Warriors, Jambari Jigeni. 7,000 women strong. So as I stand here, I echo the voices of 7,000 and more women. And I hope I will do them justice. So again, help me God. What I want to talk about is the legacy of our development and our democracy, and also our roles and responsibility in this democracy and development of our great nation. You know, as a reflection, I am looking back at this book that I'm currently writing, The Patriarch's Daughter, a daughter coming home, homecoming. 5 years ago, I made the journey to come back home and live in the most remote parts of the country. We wrote the project, The Treasure Women Warriors. We piloted in Balagar. In October, the hottest month of the year, coming back from the United States and living with no running water. Very difficult. One of the most difficult projects and things I have ever done. My mission was not actually to do that, but I realized if I was going to work with women in this country, I have to be one of them. I have to understand them. I have to wake up where they wake up. I have to think like they think, and I have to know how they think, and also what the men in their community think about them. So 9 months I live in the Balangar area, all the clusters. I was in the Bantaba, I was in the markets, I was drinking attire, and I befriend the men too in the community as well. Because I realize if I want to push the Treasure Women Warrior, the men have to get a buy-in. You know, as I came from America, you know, I see all of this organization talking about women's rights, feminism, this, that. I said, we need to be realists. We need to look at our culture. We need to look at how can we penetrate the men in our community and make them feel important, and at the same time, do whatever we need to do to build ourselves, our family, and build them as men. So, as children of legacy, my father came from Kianquinala. He was the Minister of Agriculture and was among the first republic. So coming back, we've had a lot of conversations about the mistakes that they have done as leaders of this country. But as I went up country, as I lived there, they did not make mistakes. They were doing the best with what they got at that time. And we salute them. Because today, as I am up country, I don't have a name yet. You know what they tell me? Jared Duffy's daughter. So I don't have a name yet. And they tell me he did this, he did that, he did that. He was honest. So Suleiman Boub, what was once a Minister of Agriculture, he said, I worked for your father when he was the Minister of Agriculture. He said, I can guarantee you, he did not steal from the government. He was straight, he was honest, he was righteous. So imagine legacy, our development legacy, and also our democracy. These men that came before us, they did the work. So as a daughter coming back, I wanted to do the work. I wanted to hear someday, oh yeah, this is Ajikumba's daughter. So I wrote the Treasure Women Warriors. We built a headquarters in Kianquinala, a state-of-the-art headquarters in Kianquinala. We raised up over 7,000 women. We built a bank in Mamurfana in 5 years, in a span of 5 years, a village lending scheme. I became a farmer. So now I came from Quinala this morning. The reason why I am sharing this What is our role and responsibility in this democracy that we talk about? It cannot be outsourced. We need to do the sacrifice. We need to stand up for this country. We cannot be talking about this person is responsible for this person is responsible for that, and the government is the solution. No, we are the solution. Because when we first started the Treasure Women Warrior, we didn't come out for 2 years. And people said, why didn't you come out? I said, I haven't done the work yet. When we did the work, we had something, at least something to show. And His Excellency Fatmata Tambajang, a former Vice President, was there. Binta Sidibe, mashallah, women, pioneering women, was there. So what I am saying is, this work is difficult. Because they will sideline you. They will fight you. They will elbow you. They will let you know that you do not belong here. Things will be denied of you because they said you are not one of us. And what constitutes one of us? We were born here. We were bred here. Our fathers were founding members. So who is more us than all of us? So we stood in our fortitude. We believed in it. When I was 12 years old, I made a date with destiny. I was raised not by my biological mother. I went through issues. And I said, someday, imagine at 12 years old, you're making an affirmation that someday, Honorable Cole was my teacher at Wesley School. I said, someday, not only am I going to impact my life, I'm going to impact so many women. I want women to make choices that impact not only their lives, but their community. Representation matters. Women in this country matter. And the reason why I am telling you this country will not move forward if women are not given their rightful position in the society. We raise societies. We grow the food that you eat. If you eat vegetables in this country, when I was coming here, the women, they have a list of things that they wanted me to say here, and I will. You know, the women said, their strength, it is in their bravery and their unity in purpose, to uplift each other to financial freedom, to build and create, and have a built and create mentality, and to consume what we produce. So here, I'm standing here in front of you to say that women do matter in this country. That land rights for women need to be a priority for this government. Because the women grow your food. If we want to be food sufficient in this country, land rights for women. Women do not inherit land in 90% of our communities. And they're the ones that grow our food. I am telling you this because I know so. When you go to Lumos all across the country, most of the canteens are being occupied by men, and women are toiling under the sun, selling their produce. I was denied a position, a place at the Quinala Lumo because she's not one of us. So, but we will be at the Luma, inshallah. The women are saying that agriculture needs to be prioritized in this country. As farmers, we cultivated 37 hectares. Right now, if you go to our storage, we have 300 bags of maize, 400 bags of groundnuts, 7 bags of beans, and wonjo, about 100 bags of wonjo. That was not easy to do, and we did it without mechanization. So farming needs to be prioritized in this country. And the women are saying that we also need to leverage the youth in this country because they're aging a lot of the farmers. And they're asking that agriculture be prioritized and we leverage and harness the youth dividend, particularly in agriculture. So my time is up. But what I will say, this country will not be built by the funding that comes in this country. It's not going to be built by blaming this and that and that and that. We need to roll our sleeves. The Trans Women is an example, has done it. And if we can do it without funding, zero funding from international community, we funded ourselves. So we can do this. Let's leave a legacy. Let's build on whatever we have. Let's hold each other. Let's love each other. Let's support each other. Let's be our keeper. We need that in this country. Thank you.
So, due to time constraints, I will go straight to the next activity, which is our question and answer. But it's just for like 5 questions, and each, all right, it's for the members of the audience. Each person intending to ask a question has only 1 minute to ask a question, and we'll please appeal to you to direct your question to a specific panelist, if there is, so that we can have a smooth process. So if you have a question, there is someone there with a mic that you want to direct to the panelists. Okay, we have, kindly state your name and probably just 1 or 2 things about you in a minute.
Okay, assalamu alaikum, and good morning, everyone. Happy Independence Day in advance. My name is Fatim Baji, and I just have 6 questions for 6 panelists.
Oh, sorry.
One for each one. Huh? So, the first question is for Musa. What is the Gambian dream? What is our brand? And Kurang, what hope are we creating for youths of the Gambia here? And then you have Lali. What are we doing about capacity? We need jobs, employment, but are we employable? Jilan, my sister, how is the decision process looking? Are we looking balanced? Are there more women and youth in decision-making tables? Ajikumbadafe, how is our mindset? As Gambians, are our minds improving? Are we thinking better? Are we awake? And lastly, Ms. Sen, are we escaping poor thoughts and actions? Are we applying ourselves as a nation? Are we equipping each other and our kids with the means to escape poverty? Are we creating, are we building this nation? Are we learning? Thank you.
Apparently someone is flouting the rules, but it's okay. Usman, so questions, if you can maybe be considerate of the time in your response, please.
Yes, I'm just going to give like a very quick thing to that. Thank you so much for the question. Yes, in around the same date, a child was born in 1965. Today, that village young man is a proud president of a country. that's a dream come true. And for Gambia, I believe that that same child that was born 58 years ago still look forward to a state to prosper, to live, and to harness the opportunities from within and outside. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fatim. That's a very relevant question. And yes, I don't want to be the most pessimistic person on the panel, though. But yeah, I think the Gambia is blessed with a very youthful population. And that's more than 60% of the population is below the age of 25. That's quite a demographic dividend. And this is something that can be harnessed to stimulate socio-economic development. Unfortunately, though, my interaction with many young Gambians, from an anecdotal observation and also as a social researcher, because I'm currently doing research in the country, and my interaction with many young Gambians is quite unfortunate. You're talking about hopes, because you talk to young Gambians, many young Gambians, they will tell you that my dream is to travel, to go to Europe, to make life better, to make a better life elsewhere. Particularly, you go to the Senegambia Strip here, the tourism industry, you talk to young people, you see them loitering, even selling, those selling in the industry, those working in the bars, those working in the restaurants. What they tell you is that, I am working here for opportunities. What opportunity are you looking for? A tubab, because I want to travel. And also, even professionals. You look at professionals, people are every day lobbying for scholarships. You know, young people are working in this country, but they will tell you that this is a springboard for me. I'm looking for opportunities elsewhere. I want to go to Canada. I want to go elsewhere, and so on. So what hopes are we creating for young people? We have to be frank to ourselves. Does the Gambia provide you that social and professional mobility as a young person? You know, many of us want to stay and work for this country, work for this government. I was working at the university for over 4 years. And honestly, I was doing that. I was even taking my extension to school. I was carrying my projector to school. So the very bare minimum, like, you know, the very basic things are missing. So how can we make sure that we incentivize people, we motivate young Gambians, young talents that are out there to come back home and work for this country?
Thank you.
So I think...
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Time constraint. Lala, yeah, please.
Thank you very much, Fatim, for that question. I think over the years, a lot of the conversation has been around, we must invest in education. We must invest in educating the youth. We must invest in formal education. Young people need scholarships. They need to go to university. They need to graduate. And right now, the University of the Gambia is graduating young people in their thousands. But there's been very limited conversation around the need to build their capacity. It's not enough to have young people go to school and graduate. It's not enough to have them go through the formal education system. It's very important to build their capacity, and capacity building in the sense that you're looking at young people outside of the formal education system. Young people who are into farming, young people who are into fishing, young people who are into carpentry, who are into skills acquisition. So how do we create the needed spaces for them to be able to do this? Because we know that we have a very youthful population, a very minimal number of this population gets to even get to university. Some people drop out from grade 9, some people drop out from grade 12, or even before they get there, some never even get to sit in a classroom. So how do we create the spaces where we're able to build their capacity? If, for example, and this is, I know it's easier said than done, but you go to CRR, you know this is a place where young people are into rice farming. You go to North Bank region, or they're into fishing because they have the coast is very accessible to them.
Thank you, Laura.
So how do we provide the spaces given the resources that are available to young people in the areas that they're at? So I think that is very important.
Thank you.
I think my question is, how is decision making looking, women represented? And I think, just judging by the number of women on this panel, I'd like to say that there is a big improvement. There are more women represented in boardrooms and government.
but we have a long way to go. It's not enough. Every year I look at the World Economic Forum's research. They have some thematic indicators that they use to assess how women are progressing in different countries. I think we'll see that the Nordic countries are doing very well. African countries are still lagging behind. Gambia is still lagging behind. There's a lot more we need to do, starting from educational attainment, and I think that's the first thematic indicator. We need to see parents giving girl child and boy child similar opportunities. I think the workplace is the last stage. The first step is preparing women to be able to attain whatever level they want because they deserve it, not because they are women.
Thank you.
Our mindset. If it is not me, it will not be you. We have to be in the same political party or have the same ideology for opportunity to be given to you. Manipulation. We are the master of manipulation. Creating division. And we have to have the courage to do what is right, regardless of who's watching and who's not, and which side of the coin you are. We must give opportunity to people based on merit, excellence, and what they can do, so that we can all be loyal to the process. And the process and the nation is Gambia. We should all be Gambia before anything. And this is what we do at the Treasure Women Warrior. That's why, as the president, I'm neutral.
Thank you.
I guess your question in brief is whether, as Gambians, we're building or we're creating on whether what we've learned, we're actually applying it. And just to answer your question, I'll say, looking at the trend now, at least for the past 4 or 5 years, I'm seeing a lot of young people, young women especially, coming out and building initiatives that are developing, that are contributing to the sustainability, especially the economic development of the Gambia. And for me, of course, I can't talk about women leading these initiatives without talking about Auntie Kumba, I'm like actually a huge fan of what you do. And also we see women in different fields. Another woman that I actually admire a lot is Dr. Satang Nabane, who in her field as an academic is doing a lot of work contributing to scholarship, using her knowledge and applying it to the current debates, especially the transitional justice process in the Gambia. So we're doing well, but at the same time we're calling for more platforms to contribute to the sustainability of most of these initiatives. It's okay to build, but if the platform and the support is not there, especially from the government, it's difficult to sustain these initiatives.
Thank you, Maria. So, okay, we'll have 2 more questions from the audience. Yes, Madam.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Fatu Kamara from the Fatu Network. Mine is not a question, it's actually a contribution. I would like to wish everyone a happy 58 and also thank the Office of the DPPR, Ami Bojang, for organizing this very important forum. Well, I just would like to say that democracy, in as much as it is important, it cannot work perfectly if our people are not educated about democracy. I've always said that we have to start with basic education in our schools. These kids have to be taught basic democracy, basic civic education. They need to know about the country first. We need to learn about our cultures, what is acceptable, what we can do, learn to be honest in our deliberations with each other, in our dealings with each other. I think these are all stuff that are very, very important. I had a meeting before with the former Attorney General, that time it was Batambidu, and I spoke to him about the need for the government to create forums where people would be educated on democracy, how to deal with it, like Njilan has just said, spoke to someone smoking tie, and then what did the person say? It's democracy. I can smoke weed anyhow I want. So I think it is very important for the government and also for the Ministry of Basic Education to introduce basic civic education for our young people and also to teach our people democracy, that it is not doing just what you want. every citizen has a responsibility.
Thank you very much, Fatmata. My name is Abdul Aziz Wilan. My occupation is serving Mama Land as usual. And I've listened to the voice of Generation Next. I'm really touched. I'm in tears. Workshops, seminars, meetings, forums. As one of the speakers, young, very focused, Usman, is it Usman Toure? He spoke about Pincher. We feel proud. We spread wings. We look low on people because we communicate in a language that wasn't us. And communication is the key to understanding. We're talking about the Bantabas. We're talking about Fonkal Majigen, Takuligay. And today, reference to Mr. Toure, we are the community elders. Where are the community elders? Do we believe that the more we share, the more we grow? The syndrome is spreading. The backway syndrome. The never return syndrome. The crime rate. Everything is centered within Greater Banjul. You go beyond some in Birkama, they will never discuss it again. This is a headline. It should have been translated in different languages. People do understand. But we talk of your highness, your office, your lordship, honorable, and we as people who are supposed to digest this whole what we gather from here in order to transmit the message across is just centered within Greater Banjul. Till when? Yelle fi domi Adama. The Supreme Insabi Council Imam said it. Ninga niyo. Ninga hole nitsi bot sa kontante. Demba jaxi dinagi. Reverend said it.
Thank you, Uncle Aziz. We are running out of time. So, there is a hand there. The one in, no, there. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Ndaisring J. Bakuren, Executive Director of Tango. That's a non-governmental organization, the umbrella organization, association, or NGO in the Gambia, civil society. I have one question, and also I want to contribute. I know there isn't much time. I must thank the panelists. They are doing better than we when we were your time. You are more vocal than us. Anyway, keep it up, but within the framework. Marisen, you talked about civil society, the civil space. How can we improve it? How can we enhance it? At the same time, also, our role and responsibility, that is very important. And working together with government, because we are complementing government effort. We are partners in development. We shouldn't be seen at the other side. Gambia belongs to all of us. Happy independence to everybody. Thank you.
Maria, you have 2 minutes to answer, please.
Right, so I mentioned about the fact that civil society has a moral imperative in contributing to democratic governance and the attainment of rule of law and constitutionalism in the country. But I also mentioned the fact that in as much as we want to do what we want to do, civil society always has this tendency of making sure that their voices are always heard, which is completely fine. But in as much as you're doing that, and in the act of doing that, there's a sense of responsibility that comes with it. Because at the end of the day, we go into communities, we talk about a particular issue, another member of the civil society also goes into these communities, and the conclusions are completely different, but at the end of the day, what you're talking about is different. So there is a lack of filtration of information that comes within the civic space. So that is why it's important among civil society for us to be able to attain good governance, and our message is to come across as one. civil society amongst themselves need to come together, filter the messages, and send it out to Gambian people. But at the end of the day, like I said before I rounded off my statement, everything that civil society does needs to be done in partnership with government. Because at the end of the day, if you're pushing for a bill, for instance, you need the help of government. Because at the end of the day, this needs to go to parliament. So the moment government feels like they are not part of it, they will not contribute as much as they're supposed to, because from the beginning, they will probably feel left out. The same way government will take initiatives and not involve civil society. At the end of the day, when that document comes to the field, civil society plays a huge part in translating and making sure that people understand what these things are.
Thank you, Maria.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
we need to work together to attain what we want to achieve. That's the message here.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Okay, we'll have 2 more questions. I know we all have so many questions, but we have time constraint. So there is a mic, and the minister's hand was up there. So 1 minute, please.
I can go ahead.
1 minute.
Okay, thank you. I'll try. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nene Frida Gomez. The content regne feke na besbi. Even though I was sent a text, I'll send you an email. The email never came. But this is about Gambia, and my belief is lo boka bulhar ñu olaji mota mateo fitem. I have 2 questions. One to Usman.
1 question, Nene, please.
Okay, all right. Then
Only
I'll direct my question to Usman. Usman, how do we inculcate in us the insatiable dedication to uncovering the absolute truth that keeps us from turning a blind eye to corruption and injustice, to tyrants, to victims, to secrets and lies? And
Thank you.
Let me finish. Let me finish, please.
One question.
There was a need to call for this forum. So if you cut people short to go without saying what they want to say,
I know, but
it's okay. It's not
please.
1 minute,
you
my
go
dear.
ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I just wanted to say that comment Ms. Boyang Sisaho, the State House for coming up with this platform. Very important. I don't think there has ever been something like this. For me, I'm not young, I'm not old, but it's the first for independence to organize this.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, it would have been the perfect moment to have the chief civil servant, the president, sit here and dialogue with us. And this will be a memorable thing. A legacy would have been made to have that. But with his absence, everything we say here will have to be related to him. It would have been nice for him to sit here and listen to us without even saying anything. So, Ami Boyang, I think when we do this next time, let's think about that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Usman? Usman will respond and then the minister.
All right. Thank you so much for that brilliant question. Yes. In as much as we champion ourselves for a lot of the things that this country is known for, we must also not turn a blind eye to the fact that we have challenges. And some of these challenges are on the individuals before the system itself. You see, going back to the roots, I don't have to go to school to be truthful. I don't have to go to school to be righteous. I don't have to be in school to be honest. Schools don't teach this. I'm an African. I am born and raised to be that way. So these are fundamentals that if we cannot incorporate in our school system, then this independent we are talking about is just rhetoric. We must be able to stand, identify ourselves as who we are, and speak dignity. That's the African, that's the Gambian. And this can be done through various engagement. I believe this could be a spotlight, the beginning of many other engagements, which will lead to informed policies and practice in both public and private entities. But all of us have a role in that. I believe your
Thank you very much,
answered.
Usman. So we'll now have the minister and then that guy, and then that will be the end of the question and answer for the junior panel.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I just want to say good afternoon to everyone here.
but most especially to my colleague ministers, our religious leaders, distinguished ladies, all protocols observed. Here we are today, on the 2 days before the independence celebration of our great country, the Gambia, talking about democracy. Everybody talks about democracy. It's on everybody's lips these days. And most unfortunately, somebody talked about the misconception about democracy, what people think democracy is. I have a right to do whatever I want to do, forgetting about the responsibility that you have. It's quite unfortunate. It's indeed a very thought-provoking moment for all of us here, and for the Gambia as a whole, a very somber moment. Can we stop for a while and think, in our quiet moments, what is this forum about? What does it really mean? We talked about democracy. They say democracy, we all learned that in school, is the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. We put the government in place, but at the same time, what do we do? Madam Senghor there said it. The things that we put out about the Gambia, about the government, the things we say, we put the government up, and then we are pulling the feet of the government down. What does it mean? Yes, democracy is about discipline. It's about respect for the rule of law. It's about positive mentality, responsible behavior, ambition, perseverance, determination, honesty, sincerity, tolerance, trustworthiness. We can go on and on and on. Education has been mentioned by several people here. At the moment in the Gambia, education is in the constitution of this country as a human right. The constitution says education is a human right. And we should all, and it should be provided to all children living in the Gambia. It doesn't say all Gambian children, but all children living in the Gambia. And at the moment, it is free from ECD, that is early childhood development, right up to grade 12. Students in public schools do not pay fees, they do not buy textbooks for themselves, and so much is put into education at the moment. In fact, education has the greatest share of the Gambian cake. It's still not enough, though. I will always argue with the finance minister. He would tell me, but I'm giving you so much. I say, it's still not enough. There is so much that needs to be done. Mr. Toure talked about the home being the first place for education to take place. It starts in the home. Some time ago, I was asked, what are schools doing to inculcate discipline? I said it is not the school's responsibility to inculcate discipline. The schools are there to teach, not to inculcate discipline. The children should come from the homes, disciplined, and then the teachers will have all the time in the world to teach them.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
But you have a lesson of 45 minutes. You want to discipline before you begin to teach. What will you teach?
Thank you. Thank you.
I have so much to say, but
yes,
perhaps I will stop there.
Thank you
and
very
I want
much.
to say I'm very proud of all of you young panelists. I was saying to my honorable colleague, the education system is always being criticized, but it is the system that produced these and many more.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we are all impressed today.
Thank you very much.
Kumba told you, I taught herself and her sister in school, and this young lady spoke about Satang Nabane. Of course, Kumba, you know, she was at Wesley. She was my student as well. It's the system that is being criticized. But at the same time, we are overhauling the system. We are trying to improve the curriculum, expand the curriculum.
Thank you, Honorable.
Competence-based education, TVET education.
Thank you very much.
And we have technical schools, we have an agricultural school, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. So we'll have the last question from the gentleman there, and that will be the end of the, yes? Oh, God. Afternoon.
Good afternoon. I just want to make a contribution. Actually, I was prepared to make a contribution because I saw contributions, so it's not actually a question. I have to join my colleague, Abdul Wilan, to say that I have also been very greatly touched, and also would congratulate the President's Office for coming up with this, which is a very laudable, initiative. Now, what I would want to suggest is, a reverend said here that this is an elite, group. A lot of us, because we can speak the English language, we are able to understand. Very few who are watching the television would catch up. So what I'm suggesting is this should be translated not only by GRTS, as we usually have, but by all radio stations. It should be mandatory. And that government should encourage them by at least giving a subvention, because they do advertise. They get money from advertisement. Government should say now, we know you advertise and get money, we'll give you a subvention to translate each and every speech here, because it's important. Every sentence that was said here, I can say it's a book. So I will suggest that, and I want that to be, taken to the President's office. And I'm very happy with what Dafe has said, Mrs. Dafeka. That is, in the Gambia, we usually outsource everything we say. If somebody is saying something here and is a Gambian, they will not pay heed to it. But if a person from another country, especially from the West, says something, they take it very seriously. We should not outsource anything. Just like we should not allow vegetables and fruits to come from other countries. We should not outsource everything. Everything should be Gambian, and that is the time that we will be truly independent. Once again, I congratulate the panelists for a job well done, and I also congratulate the two religious leaders who set up the pace. I thank also the audience for attending, but I would have loved this hall to be filled up. Yes. I think Gambians should not only go to workshops and meetings because they are paid.
Thank you very much, Uncle. So thank you very much. That's the end of the question and answer session, and also the end of the junior panel. May I kindly ask that you go back to your seat? May I retire the junior panel, please? I would like to invite Bright Stars Entertainment. They did an amazing video on the theme of the independence, and that will be the end of my contribution for this forum, and thank you very much.
February 18, a day for a good soul. Democracy in has in story to be told. To Baba new Mormon colonial masters. Now we free and growing, shining like asters. Independence, celebration, manage your land for the nation. Independence, no to violence, peace and development. Limoy tak ñu mëna dem. Kendi keta onangiri, onangiri, onanlege de sohon timi onanlege. Osuwa honi debeke. Ñun fok ñu jóg de, ñun fok ñu benno. ñun fokk ñu liggéey jàppale suñu réew mi ñun fokk ñu jóg de ñun fokk ñu jubboo ñun fokk ñu liggéey jàppale suñu réew mi ñun fokk ñu jóg de ñun fokk ñu bennoo ñun fokk ñu liggéey jàppale suñu réew mi ñun fokk ñu jóg de ñun fokk ñu jubboo ñun fokk ñu liggéey jàppale suñu réew mi yiriwa 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 banko loxo yi ñu dem ah hey waay increase the volume ah for the nation ñëw leen ñu celebrate independence celebration for the nation hurry on celebrate independence celebration for the nation ananga celebrate independence celebration for the nation Begin by then celebrate best billion moments in Bopa celebration every corner and I get to law and I get to law Boka Gambia benda la ñun ñoko boka Gambia ñun ñep la jur ñun ñep nam pasi benda we wala jola so se serel aku ñun ñep la jur te faral ke jaru di hulo jaru di fight ak deka bi ñoo ko moom peacefully respect the human right deka bi mun na nekk comme Christmas Julie. Are you happy? Hands up in the air. I want it, Gambia united, Gambia co-lady man. Democracy and development, Nangudo Minangado. Citizen a public official, Ligo dem na for a lady man. Oral and dental no lady man, Gambia that all may live in unity, freedom and peace each day. Hey, why? Gambia, nanyo yaya. Hey, why? Ngadokoke bangoye tanyato. Politiko, ngatun koma. Hey, why? Ngadokoke bangoye tanyato. Si fadam fanso na fatala madoku ke banko ye tanyato Cairo lafta walla madoku ke banko ye tanyato. Let's go. Independence celebration for the nation. No let me celebrate independence celebration for the nation. Hurry and celebrate independence celebration for the nation. And celebrate. Alright, Tiago, hold it. Performing.
Yes.
But tell them the concept behind Kucha.
Okay, the concept behind this Kucha, we all know that like before, during the political impasse and everything, we have so many people started claiming the ownership of the country, Kimomo, something like that. So this idea came, like that is the Rangha Bisa. And when we talk about Rangha, it's like sorrel. And it's very, very slippery. Understand? In that sense, like we brought it as an idea and then to make sure that we smooth in relationships. You understand? And promote what we call cross-cultural tolerance and make sure that we have peace and friendship amongst all. So this is the idea of the Rangha Bisa. Every year we organize it with different topics. So this Rangha Bisa is just like the Kucha. And the Kucha is Rangha is Kucha. So let us try and recognize. Like I said before, hunger. With hunger. Supaneke do am a peaceful mind. So please, let us kucha.
Yes, we go.
Yaiba. Yokal volume mo nice way. Please, new them, huh? Aha. Rakabisa, bugget, bugget, with them. Sabana, bugget, bugget. Rakabisa, bugget, bugget. Sabana, bugget, bugget. See ya. Rakabisa, bugget, bugget. Man tapanda, man my butamba. Nganema rakabisa patola, man my dawalba. Volume rakabisa balla. 360 rifle. Sama jigéen oytul, ninga sege, digo regi, moo tax ma siin. Netatali mo kaani paccal, moo tax ma wiin. Tax ma wiin. Butakalo, bulong, butakalo, bulong. Tapandaro, nganema rakabisa bina ma jaral. Dorante bulong. Dama buga nga xamane, rakabiti yo geena. Dama buga nga xamane, lii nañ ñepp ko bokka. Nañ fi xëy, di fi gontu lekk ba made in China. Nañ ko jaxase di ko tribut. Minister, do that. Bugget, bugget, let's go. Bugget, bugget, Javan. Bugget, bugget, Rakabisa. Bugget, bugget. Matokora, tatokora. Sangum menya sorode. Ajon koma hoto hoto. Konindanga nina hobode. Sangum malake. Maholinga do talake. Awasanga ni nokondide. Kosamakre. So, minda biye, so, minda biye, so, minda biye, so, nimpuchata bida, mo beda biye. Albulokasi, albulokasi, nyangkata nimpuchama, albulokasi, nyangkata nimpuchama, albulokasi. All right, that's it. Allah baraka. All right, thank you.